And so after that, Rambo 3 came out.
What, and I know we've already made fun of this title thousands of times, but what a way to name your series.
Yeah, once again, they missed the opportunity to call this Third Blood.
Third Blood. Like, that's the easiest thing you could have done.
Obviously, First Blood Part 3 would have been the more logical title. But considering how popular the second movie was, I can see why they just went with Rambo 3. And really, this works better as a sequel to Rambo First Blood Part 2 than First Blood, so...
Yeah, there's like... apart from like a brief mention of his prison stay...
They really don't mention much of First Blood in this at all.
Yeah, there's like nothing.
So this was released on May 25th, 1988. It cost about $60 million, which made it the most expensive Rambo film and also the most expensive film of all time at that time.
Really?
Yeah. Okay, and it made $189 million, but only $53 million of that was made domestically, so it was considered a box office disappointment.
Yeah.
At the time, part of it might have just been people were just getting kind of tired of this type of action movie by that point. Because Rambo First Blood Part 2 kind of started the trend of just the really over-the-top muscle...
blow everything up type of action movie.
Yeah. The tagline was, the first was for himself, the second was for his country, this time is for his friend.
That's a really long tagline.
And it was directed by Ronald McDonald. Sorry, I read that wrong. Peter McDonald.
He has a very interesting filmography, from what I can see.
This is his directorial debut. However, before this, he was a camera operator and second unit director. And he's actually done second unit on 2 movies we've done on this podcast already.
Yeah, I can see that he did Empire Strikes Back.
And Batman.
And First Blood Part 2.
Yeah, he was like director of the helicopter unit on Rambo First Blood Part 2. And he was also a camera operator on the first 2 Superman movies.
Huh. It also looks like he was second unit director on Harry Potter's 2, 3, and 5, X-Men Origins Wolverine.
There's a movie right there.
Apparently that's like the last thing he's ever done, according to the selected filmography I'm looking at.
Yeah, X-Men Origins Wolverine, everyone's favorite Deadpool movie.
I forget that Deadpool was technically in that movie.
I didn't know that was him, actually, when I first saw it. Like, I had no idea. His directing credits are a lot more sparse, and besides this movie, I don't really think any of them are worth bragging about. Like,
not really.
I didn't write any of them down.
I know he did an episode of Young Indiana Jones.
Yeah, which I didn't realize this. The kid that played Indiana Jones in that show was later in the Boondock Saints.
Really? Huh.
Which also had Norman Reedus in it. But yeah. And there's a Rambo reference in that movie, so there we go.
Oh, it all works out.
Stallone was, again, a screenwriter on the movie. He co-wrote it with Sheldon Lettich. I don't know how to pronounce that. And he wrote a bunch of Jean-Claude Van Damme movies. Including Bloodsport. And Legionnaire, which was also directed by Peter McDonald. And the cast. Okay, let's get to the cast. There's some interesting names here.
So, of course, we have Stallone and Cronenberg as Rambo and Troutman.
Obviously, the last appearance of Richard Crenna in the Rambo movies, because he died before The fourth one came out. Rest in peace. Kurtwood Smith. This is his second time on our podcast after Broken Arrow.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
He doesn't get much to do in either of these two movies. And what's interesting, I was looking through the cast earlier today. I found out there actually are a few minor characters in this who appeared in other movies on this podcast.
Really?
One of the Russian bad guys played Lord Arthur in Army of Darkness.
Oh.
And another Russian guy was played by the nuclear scientist from The Dark Knight Rises.
Wow.
The only man to beat Bane in freestyle.
Oh. Something unrelated, but I feel like is worth mentioning. We are recording this episode on the day of the Queen's death.
Yeah.
So I guess this review of Rambo 3 is dedicated to the Queen.
And what's funny also is this is actually... We're recording this exactly a month after I rewatched this.
Let's go.
And it's also Bernie Sanders' birthday, too. I know.
Oh, really?
But yeah, just a lot of weird coincidences with this podcast, apparently. But yeah. Vic Armstrong did the stunts on this movie. Once again, rubbing it in that we haven't done Indiana Jones yet.
Yeah.
And there actually is another Indiana Jones connection, but I'll mention that in the trivia. And Jerry Goldsmith is back doing the score again.
That's always good.
Making this his 5th time on our podcast. That makes him the composer who's appeared the 2nd most times.
Yeah, he's trying to compete with John Williams there.
And this movie's interesting because it was the first Rambo film focused on a war that was current at the time. That being the Russian invasion of Afghanistan.
Yep.
And one thing I felt like bringing up, because there's the misconception that this movie, it's Rambo fighting on the side of the Taliban.
It's not quite that.
No, it's not, because he's fighting with the Mujahideen, and they were made up of tons of factions, which ended up splitting apart later. One of those groups was the Taliban, but again, it's not quite that simple. And also, one of the characters in this movie, he was based on a real Afghan rebel who denounced and fought against the Taliban.
Huh.
So, no, Rambo did not help the Taliban, but that being said, it is kind of funny seeing Rambo fighting on the side of Afghanistan decades before,
We went to, yeah.
Yeah, George W. Bush should have listened to Colonel Troutman's speech in that one scene.
It's a very interesting choice to have Rambo go and fight in Afghanistan like this, because, when you think about his past, it was, during the Vietnam War, where he was part of the invaders attacking...
That is a good point, actually, yeah.
Yeah, like kind of a group of basically freedom fighters or people who weren't as well equipped as the opposing army. But in this one, it flips it, where he's helping out the Afghan warriors trying to fight off the invading Russians.
Yeah, and the fourth one's kind of like this too, but we'll get to that. And it's also funny, the year before this, James Bond also fought against the Russians with the Mujahideen.
Oh, really?
In the Living Daylights.
Huh. It's a popular time to go to Afghanistan, apparently.
One of the most famous American action stars fought against the Russians in Afghanistan, and the most famous British action star also did, so that's kind of funny. So, getting to our initial thoughts, I actually watched this movie on my birthday once. I believe it was my 15th birthday.
How did that birthday turn out after watching this movie?
I ate a big cake with ice cream while watching Rambo 3. It was pretty great.
That's pretty good.
Great birthday. And also, I've probably seen the trailer for this movie 100 times.
I don't know if I've actually watched the trailer for this one. The only trailer I've seen is the one for Rambo.
For some reason, I really love the trailer for this movie. It's the same with the trailer for Die Hard 2. I don't know why, but I've watched those trailers for the... And Die Hard 2, like, isn't even, like, one of my favorite Die Hard movies either, which is weird. But that trailer is awesome, like, the music. Yeah. And my opinion on this one has been a bit inconsistent. For some reason, I didn't like it the first time I saw it. I felt like the beginning was a little too slow. But on rewatches, it has gotten more enjoyable each time. And watching it this time, I was surprised at how much I enjoyed it. Because this one kind of feels like they were trying to outdo the other Rambo movies.
Yeah, you can kind of tell that.
There are way more kills and way more explosions in this. The deaths are just so over the top.
Yeah, there's a couple that I have still perfectly imprinted on my mind.
What they were trying to do is, like, they were like, let's make this movie as big and epic as possible. And as a result, you get one of the most overblown action films of the 1980s, and I am all for it. This movie's fucking awesome. It's incredibly high in absurdity, but also incredibly high in entertainment value.
So I will say, just kind of my general impressions of the movie.
I know you're not as big a fan of it as I am.
Yeah, there are definitely a lot of memorable moments throughout. There's a few specific scenes around the middle and towards the end that really stick out. But for the most part, it just felt kind of to me, just kind of forgettable. I definitely prefer the first two movies over this one.
That's kind of how I felt when the first few times I saw it. That it wasn't as memorable as the first two. But there's some stuff I think it does really well. I find it interesting Trautman gets more to do in this film.
Yeah, that's one of the few things that I actually really like about this movie compared to First Blood Part 2, is that Trautman has an actual role in this movie.
He still spends a lot of screen time lecturing the villain.
But he's a bit more involved than he was.
He has more to do with the plot, and also he gets involved in the action scenes and the climax.
Yeah.
And you kind of get the sense that him and Rambo are really good friends, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, I've noticed this one doesn't get as much attention as the other Rambo movies. Like, a lot of people consider this the worst one, generally. But honestly, after watching it again, I was having trouble deciding whether I liked it more than the second one.
Really?
Because I think part of it was just expectations. Like, I wasn't expecting to enjoy it so much. But after thinking about it, I do like the second one more. But this one, I think, is a really entertaining action movie. Like, if you go in with the expectation that it's just action that you're getting, then you'll probably like it a lot more. Of the Rambo movies, though, this one definitely feels the most like an 80s film by far.
Yeah, definitely.
It's so entrenched in just, like, 80s action tropes. Maybe because Rambo 2 introduced some of those tropes.
Yeah.
So by the time you get to 3 years later, you know... But yeah, okay. So, getting to the movie. We start with a big red title card, Rambo 3.
Yep.
I kind of wish it was on fire, though. Like the second one, but oh.
Yeah.
And the opening scene is... Come on, this opening is great. Rambo fighting with sticks.
It is pretty entertaining at the beginning. So basically, Trautman and another man from the U.S. government,
Kurtwood Smith,
are
just call him Kurtwood Smith or Clarence Boddicker, whichever works.
They're going to try and track down Rambo, and they find him fighting in a Bangkok stick fighting ring for money.
It's a really badass fight scene.
It is pretty good.
They're just hitting each other with sticks and stuff. Yeah, it's great. I like that Rambo doesn't kill the guy at the end.
Yeah.
He could very easily kill the guy, but instead he helps him up, you know?
Yeah.
So that's nice of him. And I also like that Rambo still has Coe's necklace from the second movie.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
And the knife scar he got in the second movie. So there's a little bit of continuity.
I noticed the scar. I didn't notice the necklace.
It's even on the fucking poster. Are you kidding me? Like, but anyway. And basically Rambo has been living in Thailand with some Buddhist monks. He like fixes things for them. So he hasn't gone back to America, I guess.
Nope, he's just been living out in Thailand.
The poor guy. And apparently he was really hard to find.
Yeah.
I don't know how, but okay.
I feel like he was at least trying to get away because he didn't want to, get wrapped up into something else, some other mission.
How do you miss a guy like Rambo in a crowd? I mean, especially with how fucking jacked he is. He's even more jacked in this one than he is in the second movie. Like,
yeah.
Jesus. Because he was like competing with Arnold Schwarzenegger at the time, like over who could have more muscle mass and stuff. But anyway, there's even like I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Twins, but there's like a scene where Arnold's character walks by a poster of Rambo 3, and he's like comparing his muscles to Stallone's muscles.
That's pretty good.
And so Trotman and Kurtwood Smith, they basically arrived to try to enlist Rambo on a mission to fight the Russians in Afghanistan.
Specifically to deliver Stinger missiles.
And I believe this was a lyric in We Didn't Start the Fire, but... Rambo fighting Russians in Afghanistan.
And Rambo just outright refuses. He says that his war is over. And Troutman's like, no, you're a trained killer. You need to come help me fight the Soviets.
I love that line right there. It means my war is over. Because Rambo, he's tired,
man.
Why would he want to? I mean, he's just living with some monks, just living a very peaceful life, And it turns out Trotman wants Rambo to go on the mission with him, which is interesting. Like, Trotman's going on the mission himself.
Yeah.
Trotman's taking this very seriously. Trotman tells Rambo a story about a sculptor. He found this, like, rock, and he made this, like, really nice...
like a beautiful statue.
Statue out of it, yeah. And the sculptor, like, said, the statue was already there. I just had to chip away the rough edges. And then he's, like, trying to compare this to Rambo, saying, like, that he always was a soldier. They just had to chip away the rough edges, during training. This scene kind of felt like something Michael Caine as Alfred would have said to Bruce in one of the Batman movies. Like, kind of.
It feels slightly villainous, is the thing. Like, it's basically him saying the U.S. government turned you into a killer. Or not turned you, but brought out the killer that was inside of you. And that feels
He's like trying
weird.
To say he's just naturally was a soldier,
Yeah.
And he's also talking about how Rambo needs him to, like, come full circle, And apparently the working title for this movie was Full Circle, First Blood Part 3.
What?
Just make the continuity even more confusing, okay. It's kind of weird for Trotman to do that, though. He's just like, I mean... Because he knows how traumatized Rambo is by, like, war and stuff. But I guess it's just like Trotman himself is going on it. He wants somebody he can trust.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, who
better than Rambo, really?
I mean, Rambo's like the greatest soldier. Like, he's his greatest creation. I mean,
yeah.
They seem to be friends, so. And Trotman, he leaves, and I like this little detail that you hear an instrumental version of It's a Long Road playing.
Oh, yeah.
Call back to the first one. And Rambo's alone again. He's just sitting in a hammock. The poor guy.
He really can never catch a break, can he?
Nope, he doesn't in the fourth one. He definitely doesn't in the fifth one. It does not get better for him.
Yeah, because this is the second time where he's kind of enlisted into doing some super dangerous mission.
And then Trotman immediately gets captured in Afghanistan.
It goes very poorly for him.
You dumbass. Just immediately. The Russians just show up, surround him. Yeah, maybe he's the one that needs to come full circle. Quit bothering Rambo. Bring him on these missions. It's not like, I mean, okay, in Rambo First Blood Part 2, he was in prison. He had something to gain from going on that mission. You know, he could either get a presidential pardon or he could die. I mean, either one works for Rambo. And then in this movie, I mean...
There's nothing. He has no incentive.
But now he does, because Trotman was captured.
Yep.
Kurtwood Smith, he tells Rambo what happened. But also that they can't really do anything. So why is he telling him? He's telling him, he said, we just want to let you know. I mean, but it's still, I mean...
Yeah, it's basically him trying to say, hey, can we get you the help now?
Rambo, the movie can't continue unless you go and rescue Trump.
Yeah.
Sort of like the Rambo video game. And yeah, of course, Rambo suggests going in himself. He says, what about me? Basically gets sent on a top secret mission.
I want you to know up front that if you're captured, or if any of this leaks, we'll deny any participation or even knowledge of your existence.
I'm used to it.
Kind of a Snake Plissken line right there.
This is where I want to bring something up.
Okay.
This movie has a lot of similarities to the Metal Gear Solid series as a whole, especially with Metal Gear Solid 5, but we'll get more to that later. But this first part here is almost exactly like the opening for Metal Gear Solid 1. Because at the beginning of that, Snake is this basically retired... I don't think he was a Green Beret, but he was, one of those, not really a super soldier, but very highly skilled, very highly trained. He was a covert operative. And then he gets recruited by a member of the government saying, we need you to go in and, do a thing. This is going to be off the books. If you get caught, we're going to deny involvement. And you're on your own, basically.
And it does show that Rambo is consistent in these movies a little bit.
Yeah.
In that he doesn't like using violence, but if things get personal,
he'll do it.
Do not get in his way.
Yeah.
It's again a case of they drew first blood, not me. And he goes to a gun store to meet Musa Ghani, which at first I thought they were saying Mussolini, but I was like, wait, what?
Not quite.
And Rambo, he looks really tired and sad in this scene.
Yeah, he does. He looks like he's not ready to do this again.
And there's some funny lines in this scene, I think.
Yeah.
He's like showing the guy the blue light.
This? What does this work? It's a blue light. What does it do? It turns blue.
And the guy's also like saying, by looking at you, I can see you have no experience in war, do you? And then Rambo says, fired a few shots.
What a fantastic job by this guy to just completely misread Rambo.
Yeah, I just thought of that, actually. Like, this guy... Okay, if Rambo doesn't look like he's been through a war, then
who does?
And Trotman... He meets Colonel Zason, the most stereotypical Russian villain ever.
And he also wields one of the worst Russian accents I've ever heard.
Yeah, he keeps pronouncing missiles as missiles.
It's so weird.
He honestly feels like he was based on Stalin or something. Like, he has like a leaded portrait just to remind you that he's a communist.
Yeah. I also love how Troutman addresses him when he walks into the room. And he says, like, I want to talk to your superior, basically, and he's trying to talk down to him.
Yeah, he's like, and he says he has no superior, he's the one that's in charge there.
Yeah.
And Zayson also informs him that he is the first American captured in Afghanistan.
The first of many.
Yeah. That's true, yeah, because I was about to say, well, not this movie, but I'm like, oh, yeah, because, yeah.
Let's go Bush.
Fucking Bush. And Zayson wants some missiles.
Yeah, he wants to know, where did Troutman take those Stinger missiles?
But apparently Troutman, he just denies knowing anything about missiles. I like how Troutman's even mocking his accent and, like, pronouncing it like that. That's funny.
After all, in the end, what everyone really wants is peace.
The Gremlin's got a hell of a sense of humor.
And then he goes on this long speech, just morally chastising him for what he's doing in Afghanistan. And it's pretty great and also really hilarious in hindsight.
Every day your war machines lose ground to a bunch of poorly armed, poorly equipped freedom fighters. The fact is that you underestimated your competition. If you'd studied your history, you'd know that these people have never given up to anyone. They'd rather die than be slaves to an invading army. You can't defeat a people like that. We tried. We already had our Vietnam. Now you're going to have yours.
And again, that is just some wonderful foreshadowing into,
Yeah, god damn it, Bush.
future conflicts.
God damn it, Bush. Also, Rambo's in a new setting. He's in a desert.
Yeah, it's not a jungle or a forest this time.
Or a town.
Small town America.
Jerkwater, USA. And he's talking to Ghani. Ghani mentions that Alexander the Great, Genghis Khan, the British, and now the Russians tried taking over Afghanistan. Again, another part that's really funny in hindsight, because the United States joined them later on.
It's just incredible how poorly a lot of this stuff is aged.
Well, no, it's more just how bad American foreign policy is than this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a reason it's called the Graveyard of Empires. If anything, this movie was probably a warning, really. I was also noticing Rambo has more one-liners in this one.
Yeah.
And he doesn't really... Like, he's still kind of a quiet character, like he was in the other ones, but yeah, occasionally he'll have like a quip or something.
Yeah. It's definitely a lot more than in First Blood, for sure.
Yeah, and even in First Blood Part 2, he has like a few, but not as many as in this. We get another torture scene. Troutman gets lifted on a rope. And Zayson, he's again asking where the missiles are. And he says, "In your ass."
It's my favorite Troutman quote.
Yeah. Yeah, you'd think Troutman would have something a little more clever than that, but I don't know. I still think...
When you're being tortured, it's hard to come up with something clever.
True.
You gotta cut the man some slack.
And Zayson also finds out that Rambo is coming.
And that's not a good thing.
He doesn't seem all that concerned about it, though, because clearly he's never seen the first two movies. And Rambo meets the Mujahideen. Some of these scenes were really depressing.
Yeah.
Like, there was one scene where one of the rebels gives a really depressing monologue about the atrocities committed against the Afghanis. And I actually felt really sad for them during some of this. I was like, Jesus Christ. Because with the first two, they don't really go into detail on like the specific atrocities that happened during some of those wars. Well, except for what happened to some of the soldiers, but not what happened to like civilians and stuff. So it's kind of disturbing during some parts, but not as disturbing as the next movie. And they're playing some games on horseback, and they decide, hey, let's let Rambo join in. Why not?
It's kind of a strange, fun little scene in the middle of the movie.
Yeah, it's kind of just a little breather before anything crazy happens. He has to like throw a sheepskin in a circle, and he makes a joke comparing it to football. I was like how right before he rides off on the horse, the Ghani like says to him, "God must love crazy people. He makes so many of them." Which I thought was funny, but yeah. And then we get a scene which is honestly really after that monologue and stuff, that this scene came off as really depressing.
Yeah. The Soviets end up launching an attack. Or they send like 2 helicopters.
A lot of people are just getting wiped out.
Yeah.
And Rambo, he's just running from explosions, which that must have inspired Nicolas Cage in Con Air.
Yeah.
The guy that gave that monologue earlier, he's talking to Rambo. He's like saying, "Now you see how it is here. Somewhere in the war, there's supposed to be honor. Where's the honor here?"
Have you not seen enough death? Go. Go while you can. This is not your war.
It is now.
They got Rambo to care again.
Rambo's such a nice guy. I mean, he already cared because Trotman was there, but now he's like actually invested in
the conflict.
And we get some pretty cool scenes of Rambo sneaking around at night.
Okay, so this is I guess 2 things here real quick. This is actually probably my favorite scene in the movie. I actually just love this kind of him sneaking around and planting all these remote or the time bombs everywhere.
I noticed when we were talking about the first 2 movies, some of your favorite scenes were the stuff of Rambo sneaking around.
Yeah, I don't know exactly why. It just feels cool because it's showing off his kind of, skills, his capabilities in war as like a one-man soldier having to go into places like these.
Exactly, yeah. And it's also kind of like the Metal Gear games.
And that was my second point. This feels exactly like Metal Gear Solid 5. And because the series director, Hideo Kojima, because he loves movies so much, I have no doubt that he watched this movie, saw that scene, and went, "That's it. That's the 5th game. I'm sending Big Boss to Afghanistan, and he's going to do this." Because there are missions that are exactly like that.
Well, I mean, who wasn't watching Rambo movies in the 80s? I mean...
True. But, like, you're in Afghanistan, fighting the Soviets in Metal Gear Solid 5. You have the watchtower to look out for, like Snake does. You have to take out like communications equipment, disable, like tanks or other machinery so people can't come attack you or send for reinforcements. It's like beat for beat, it feels like a Metal Gear Solid 5 mission.
Yeah. I haven't played any of those games, but I'm not surprised. I mean, I'm not surprised. Also, like how Rambo grabs onto the underside of a tank.
Yeah, that part's pretty fun.
That kind of feels like something to be in like Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade right there.
Yeah.
But ultimately, Rambo fails to rescue Colonel Trotman.
And he ends up having to basically back off.
Yeah, you get some more. See, they're like, the bomb goes off, they go into some underwater caves. Rambo, like, shoots some guys after, like, coming up out of some water. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So that's sort of like Missing in Action also has a scene like that where Chuck Norris is, like, in water. They comes out, like, shoots a bunch of guys with a machine gun.
Yeah.
He uses a rocket launcher, because, again, he's Rambo.
He has to.
And then we get one of my favorite exchanges in this whole movie.
Who do you think this man is? God.
Oh, God would have mercy. He won't.
It's a pretty good quote.
It sort of reminds me of that line Trotman says in the first movie, where he says God wasn't the one that made Rambo, he did.
Yeah.
And it's, again, Trotman's dialogue resembling Chuck Norris jokes. I mean, you know. During all this, the kid was injured.
And Rambo himself.
And then we get...
I know for a fact that the writers of Lost saw this scene and they enjoyed it because I don't remember if it's season 1 or season 2, but one of the characters gets like a pretty bad wound and he does the exact same thing that Rambo does in this scene.
Yeah, Rambo's like sitting alone at a campfire and he cauterizes his wound by pouring gunpowder in it and lighting it on fire.
I want to know if that would actually work because I feel like that wouldn't work.
It wouldn't.
Like
it wouldn't. I think I read somewhere that it would have made it much worse.
At the very least, Rambo now has an infection.
Like flames shoot out.
Yeah, no, it's because he was pierced all the way through by like a stick. The flames come out both sides of the wound. This was not a pleasant experience.
It's ridiculous, but I love this scene. It is like it's one of the most memorable scenes from this movie.
Yeah.
There's like so many great scenes in this movie. And that's
because this is the point in the movie where it kind of just goes off the rails.
It goes completely insane. Like the first part of the movie is a little bit relaxed, but then it just goes completely insane.
Yeah.
In some of the action scenes, yeah. Including a scene where Rambo climbs a mountain shirtless.
Right after cauterizing his wound with gunpowder.
And yeah, it wouldn't be a Rambo movie if he wasn't shirtless for a good portion.
Yeah, fair.
Which, maybe that's why these feel like Tarzan movies. There actually is a Tarzan movie where he is like in the desert. Believe it or not.
Really?
Is Tarzan's Desert Mystery. He finds Trotman. They hijack a helicopter and then crash it. Morons. And there was a funny exchange.
You told us to ignore pain, didn't you? Is it working? Not really.
And again, that was another thing that I like about this movie is just seeing the camaraderie between Rambo and Trotman. We didn't really see that too much in the first two movies.
It definitely makes them feel like they're closer than what we've seen on the previous two, which is nice.
You get the return of explosive tipped arrows, which he uses to blow up a fucking helicopter.
They build up to it so much too. They show him assembling his compound bow, assembling the arrows, screwing the explosive tip onto it, and then blowing up the helicopter.
It's amazing. I mean, come on. With scenes like that, how can you not love this movie? And he just shoots it right at the helicopter, too.
Yeah, perfect shot. Never mind, the draft of the helicopter would probably make it impossible to hit it with a bow.
You know what? Maybe this is my favorite Rambo movie now that I think about it. Gosh. It's like they were trying to top that scene in the second movie where he, like, blows up that one guy.
Yeah.
With an explosive arrow there. They're like, oh, let's do it on a fucking helicopter. Oh, that's amazing. Right before they split up, Trotman says,
I'm sorry I got you into this, John.
No, you're not.
which, I mean, he's not wrong.
Yeah.
He asked him if he wanted to go on this mission. And Rambo said no, and then he got his ass captured, so then Rambo had to... Oh my god.
Yeah, he had to come in and save him again.
Let the poor guy have
a moment of peace.
Yeah, let him enjoy retirement for a little bit. That's really what this whole series is. It's just nothing would have happened if people had just left Rambo alone.
Yes. And it's also wild to think about the fact that if the sheriff in the first movie had just let Rambo go and buy a meal, or just, hadn't even arrested him, Rambo at this moment in time would likely not be in Afghanistan blowing up helicopters with explosive arrows and cauterizing his wound with gunpowder.
Yeah. And Rambo goes down in some caves, and we get definitely one of the most memorable lines from the movie.
Yes.
He, kills a guy and then takes the walkie-talkie.
Are you listening?
Who are you?
Your worst nightmare.
It's pretty badass. And this is also the only line Rambo says to Colonel Zason in the movie.
Oh, that's a good point. I didn't notice that.
Sort of like in the second movie, how he only says one line to Colonel Podolsky.
Yeah.
And I mean, really, when you think about it, yeah, Rambo is his worst nightmare. I mean, yeah. He should have listened to Colonel Troutman.
Everyone needs to listen to Colonel Troutman.
Well, except for maybe Rambo, because Rambo seems to get in trouble because of Troutman. Or who knows, maybe if Rambo had just went on the mission in the first place, things would have just been fun. I don't know. Oh, that's pretty cool. Rambo's shooting some arrows.
Yeah, people in caves.
Blue lighting. It looks fucking badass.
It does.
And actually, the Blu-ray I have of this movie, when you open it up, that shot is on the inside of the cover.
Oh, really?
Blu-ray equals blue light, I guess.
Yeah.
And again, it's more of Rambo sneaking around and just killing guys. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. And I love when Rambo gets out of this cave.
Because then we get one of the best deaths in the movie. It's
so ridiculous and unnecessary.
He kills the huge Russian henchman by tying a rope around his neck, pulling the pin out of a grenade, kicking him down a hole, hanging him, and then it blows him up.
It's so over the top and unnecessary.
In the best way, though. It's just... That's kind of what I love about this movie, is just how overkill it is with, the action and stuff. Because, again, they're trying to top Rambo First Blood Part 2, and how do you do that?
You hang a guy and then blow him up immediately after.
And Zason's death is almost as ridiculous as this, but we'll get to that later. You just remembered what it was, didn't you?
I did. I just remembered how he died.
I'm telling you, man, this movie's amazing. And then Trotman and Rambo are surrounded. And we get into some more humor right here. Trotman says, "Got any ideas?" Rambo says, "Surrounding them's out." And then Trotman says, "Hell of a time for humor, John." So that's another thing. I mean, Rambo, in this first two, he seemed to be taking these situations a little more seriously. Oh, another great line here.
What do you say, John? Fuck them.
And then this is also just super... They're surrounded by tanks and trucks and dudes with guns.
These two guys are just fighting off hundreds of Russians because... realism.
They have a 4-foot wall, or a 4-foot crack in the floor, in the ground that they hide in, that protects them from all bullets until the Afghani arrive to actually fight off the Soviets.
The Mujahideen show up. Also love how Rambo rides a horse with a Molotov cocktail.
Yes.
It's absurd, but again, in the best way. And then the final face-off between Rambo and Colonel Zason. He's in a tank. Zason is in a plane.
They're in a helicopter. And then Rambo's like
crashes the
firing
tank.
with hold on. Rambo's firing at it with the machine gun. And he ends up killing the co-pilot. He fires at it like with the main gun and he keeps missing. And so Rambo eventually just rams the tank into the front of the helicopter.
And it blows up. I also love how the plane blows up, but the tank doesn't.
Yeah, no, the tank's fine. Rambo's perfectly okay. But the helicopter's been incinerated.
Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing. It's just the best kind of insanity you can get out of one of these types of movies.
And then the movie basically just ends after that happens.
Yeah, he like lets the kid have Ko's necklace. I guess it's just him moving on.
Yeah.
And he drives off with Trotman. Trotman says, "You think we're getting a little soft?" And Rambo says, "Maybe a little." And I just realized this is one of the only Rambo movies where Rambo gets a happy ending.
Yeah, it ends well for him. He gets over Ko. He saves the day. He makes all the Afghani people happy, and he killed some communists.
He rescues Trotman, yeah.
Yeah.
It ends pretty well for him. The poor guy, he just goes through a lot of shit in these movies, and it's actually nice that he finally,
Yeah.
like...
For at least the next 20 years, he had a happy ending.
Yeah. And then there's the end title card. It says, this film is dedicated to the gallant people of Afghanistan. Which is another misconception I want to address. One myth about this movie is that the original title card said, this film is dedicated to the brave Mujahideen fighters of Afghanistan.
Yeah, I always heard that.
Some people think it was changed. Like, there's some people that think it was changed after 9/11, but apparently that's not the case. The title card just always said the gallant people of Afghanistan. And we get a song over the end credits.
Again.
A song I completely forgot was in this movie, but it's not an original song.
Which is, I guess, the first time that's happened for Rambo.
It's a cover of He Ain't Heavy, He's My Brother. And this version was performed by Bill Medley of the Righteous Brothers.
Huh.
And was produced by George O. Moroder. And needless to say, it was not as successful as You've Lost That Loving Feeling or I've Had the Time of My Life. But it's a nice song. I kind of like it.
Yeah.
I don't like it as much as the other songs in the first two movies, but maybe part of that is because it's a cover, you know? There's other versions of that song I like better, but anyway. Okay, so overall thoughts. It's not the best Rambo movie, but this honestly might be the most entertaining one for me.
It is a fun one to watch. I will give it that. Especially when you get to the end with all the insanity.
There is so much action. It's like they wanted this to be the biggest action movie of all time.
Yeah.
Because in terms of action scenes, this is definitely the best of the series. It's definitely more than a little ridiculous, but I mean, come on. How can you not love it? I mean,
yeah. It is fun.
It's just the last half of it is just nonstop action. Basically. Like, it's just...
I do think that the beginning is pretty slow. I do like that stealth sequence, but a lot of it before that kind of just blends together in my mind and just
There are some slow parts in the beginning, I will admit.
And I still do think that I prefer the first two over this one, but it is a fun watch for sure.
I found the conflict between Afghanistan and Russia interesting in this movie.
Yeah.
Especially in light of more recent history. Gosh, imagine if they started doing that with other conflicts at the time, like a Rambo movie about apartheid.
Yeah, that would be a fascinating one to watch.
One idea I remember reading about this, it was scrapped. One idea they had, I can't remember if it was for this film or the next one, but they were going to have Rambo save the president after Camp David got taken over.
Really? Huh.
President Ronnie has been kidnapped by ninjas. Are you a bad enough dude?
If we didn't get a bad dude in that movie, then it would have been disappointing.
Because it would have been Reagan too. Because
Yeah.
19,
Yeah.
unless it was for the fourth one, or maybe I don't know. And this one it feels really huge and epic.
Yeah, it does.
It's the best looking of all the Rambo films, I think. The cinematography and the visuals they look great. Like the stunts, the explosions. It is insane how many explosions are in this movie. And yeah, it's silly and overblown, but god damn it, it is the best kind of silly and overblown that you could get from this type of movie. And Stallone, he's in peak form here, in terms of action. Yeah. I think Richard Crenna's good in this. I like that. Again, I like that he's involved in some of the action scenes.
Yeah, he gets a bit more of an expanded role.
You definitely get the sense that he and Rambo are really good friends. And I think that might be part of why I like the first three Rambo movies more than the fourth and fifth ones, and that's because both Rambo and Trotman are in them. It's kind of weird watching Rambo movies that don't have Trotman in them.
Yeah, I imagine that 4 and 5 feel a bit strange not having Troutman there as the guy who's basically pushing Rambo to do everything.
Colonel Zayson, he is... he's ridiculous, but he's a fun villain, I think.
Yeah. I don't think he's as memorable as the Soviet in the last movie, but...
Yeah, Steven Berkoff. Yeah, Steven Berkoff, he's enjoyable too. He's more over the top than Steven Berkoff.
Yeah.
He's like the most stereotypical Russian villain ever. He's like playing chess and like... I think he's like drinking like vodka or something at one point too. Yeah, he's got the picture of Lent. Oh man, the 80s, man. I also liked the Mujahideen characters, and I actually gave a shit when the Russians started attacking and wiping a bunch of them out.
Yeah.
I do have a few problems with this though. Again, I love these movies, but they're not perfect, I think it does suffer a little bit in terms of that the plot is a little too derivative, and there's occasionally like some lines that don't work.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, they've almost completely ditched the themes that the first two movies had.
Yeah.
Like Vietnam is mentioned once, I think.
Yeah, it's only directly mentioned when Troutman basically compares the Soviets in Afghanistan to them in Vietnam.
And they don't really mention, like, Rambo's PTSD or any of the events from First Blood, really. And like I said, I love these three movies. Honestly, if they had stopped here, this might just be my favorite film trilogy of all time.
I honestly, considering that Rambo gets a happy ending, I wouldn't mind it if this was the last one in the series. Let the guy have a break.
And I do like the differences in settings in these movies. The first one's in a forest, in a town. The second one's in a jungle. And this one's in a desert. So it gives them all kind of different feels to them.
Yeah. So you could very easily tell what scene is from what movie.
Yeah. And I think part of why I like the second and third one so much is because just... after seeing all of the horrible shit Rambo had to go through in that first one, it's nice that he finally gets to win. I mean...
yeah, definitely.
It's really cathartic, He finally comes full circle, like Trotman says. But yeah, if you want an action movie, I mean, this does the job.
Yeah.
Obviously, I mean...
especially once you get to the end, it does it very well.
Yeah, so we can get to the trivia now. Like the second film, this was nominated for Razzies.
Oh, good.
They really don't like Stallone. It's kind of depressing. It got 5 nominations.
Oh, Lord.
It won 1. How about you try and guess what they were? Five nominations.
5. Okay, I'm gonna go worst picture, worst director, worst actor for Stallone.
And again, you're not agreeing with this, I assume. Like you would.
No. I'm just trying to guess.
Okay.
I don't know what the other two would be. We'll go worst supporting actor, worst score.
Worst score.
Yes.
You think they'd nominate Jerry Goldsmith for?
I don't know what they would nominate this one for.
Okay. Worst picture.
Okay.
Which it did not win. Worst director, which it did not win. And that would have been poor Peter McDonald, his film debut. He gets nominated for a worst director.
Worst director.
Worst actor for Sylvester Stallone, and he won.
Yep.
He won. That's the only Razzie that this won.
Huh.
And again, this is poor Stallone. You know. Worst supporting actor for Richard Crenna, which it didn't win, and
okay, that's 4 out of 5.
Worst screenplay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which I don't really agree with any of those. There's obviously
I think it's better than that. Like, I don't think it reserved any of those.
It sounded like you were kind of mixed on the movie, rather than like outright hostile to it or anything.
Like it was decent, but it's not horrible.
Did you like it more than Conan the Destroyer?
I'll have to think on that a little bit.
Did you like it more than Escape from LA at least?
Yeah, no, I liked it more than Escape from LA.
Thank God. I was gonna say if you liked Escape from LA more than this, I would end this fucking podcast. Good Lord. And you said you liked Escape from LA too.
Yeah, I liked it. And I like Conan the Destroyer too.
Yeah. Which I'm fine with. I mean, Conan the Destroyer, that was the one I was like undecided on, but then I said I liked it. I think it was just because I liked it, but I was like, I can't back up why I liked it. But okay, this got a split vote from Siskel and Ebert.
Okay.
Sort of. Okay, so Ebert gave it a thumbs down for people expecting more out of a Rambo film, saying it has the hardware but it doesn't have the heart. But he gave it a thumbs up for Rambo fans, saying it delivered on the action.
That's fair.
Which, that makes sense. And Siskel, he gave it a thumbs up, saying it was entertaining and delivered the goods.
So we basically got 1.5 thumbs up.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. He agreed with Ebert that it would have been a better film if it had a heart, like the second one. Which is an interesting criticism. It doesn't have as much heart as Rambo First Blood Part 2.
Yeah, hold on, that's a good point.
What was the heart in Rambo First Blood 2? The POWs, I guess, and Poe. I don't know. But Rambo didn't have a love interest in Rambo 3. We need to fix that. Leonard Maltin.
Oh boy.
Oh yeah, you have to guess on this one.
I'm gonna guess.
Keep in mind what he gave he gave the first one 1.5.
And then you have the second one a 2.
He gave the second one a 2.
I'm gonna go with 2 again. I think he'll have given it a 2.
Okay. I was a little surprised on this one. Gave it 2.5 out of 4 stars.
Oh wow!
I would have expected Leonard Maltin to be a lot harsher on this one.
Yeah.
And that apparently makes this his favorite of the Rambo movies.
Really? That's an interesting choice.
You'd think he would hate the more absurd ones, but he said a definite improvement over Part 2. Now, then again, he didn't like The Dark Knight, so who knows with this guy. His reviews are inconsistent. He said a definite improvement over Part 2, This one remains firmly footed in the genre of idiot action movies. Lots of explosions to keep things lively, and some unintentionally, hilarious dialogue too. Interesting review.
It's interesting that apparently this is his favorite.
Yeah. Again, you would think First Blood would be his favorite, or I don't know.
Yeah.
And it should be worth pointing out, though, his favorite Batman movie is...
yeah, it's still Batman Forever, so...
which he gave Batman Forever the same rating as Batman Begins and The Dark Knight Rises, which... There was an alternate beginning and 2 alternate endings, and I did watch them.
Okay.
The alternate beginning was a night scene in Afghanistan of people getting shot where I couldn't tell what the fuck was going on. Moving on.
It sounds very well shot.
I literally could not tell what the fuck was going on. Like AVP, the guys who lit AVPR probably were the ones doing the light. Okay, the alternate endings. The first alternate ending is very interesting because Rambo tells Trotman to stop the truck when they're like driving off at the end. And he decides to go back. He says to Trotman, when I come full circle, I'll know where I belong. For now, I think I belong here.
That's interesting.
Trotman tells him goodbye and good luck, which, if this was going to be the last movie, yeah, that would have been very interesting.
That also would have basically tied into what Troutman said at the beginning about how Rambo's just a natural-born soldier.
The whole full circle thing, yeah.
Yeah.
And he gets on a horse and rides back with the Afghanis, yeah. I feel like if they went with that ending, then this movie would be getting a lot of shit, like during like the Bush administration.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, imagine like if they made another Rambo movie and had it so Rambo's like fighting against America and like
Yeah, that would be awkward.
And the other alternate ending is where Rambo and Trotman drive off in the truck, and Rambo says, "If you want any action, tell me you'll try a safari." And then Trotman says, "I've got your number, John."
So that almost sounds like they're trying to set up another sequel in Africa.
Yeah.
Maybe Rambo tackling apartheid wasn't too far off.
Yeah. He helps break Nelson Mandela out of prison.
At that point, what you're doing is you're taking Rambo and turning him into Forrest Gump.
Well, kind of, except he's willingly getting involved with this stuff. I don't remember Rambo drinking all those Dr. Peppers right before meeting JFK, but I can just imagine Stallone saying, "I gotta pee." Stallone said that the timing of the release might have hurt the film, because by this point the Cold War was almost over, and the United States was on better terms with Russia.
Yeah, that would probably detract a bit from your plot when people are wanting the war to wrap up.
I think it was like a few weeks before this movie came out, like Russia like announced they were like taking their troops out of Afghanistan or something. So yeah.
Oh.
Yep. So yeah, having an action movie with the Russians as the bad guys was a little bit dated by that point.
That's fascinating.
So I guess we can thank Gorbachev for Rambo 3 not doing well at the time. Oh shit, he died like not too long ago. Jesus.
Yeah, like a week ago, I think.
This doesn't really have anything to do with this movie, but there was this film called, I might have told you about this one time, but a long time ago. It's called A Man Called Rainbow.
Okay.
And basically what it was somebody took one of Stallone's older, more obscure movies called No Place to Hide and redubbed it to make it a comedy.
What?
There's a Nixon impression, there's a Reagan impression, references to The Wizard of Oz, The Three Stooges, Mr. Ed.
This sounds bizarre.
Lots of poop jokes. It is, yeah, it's like a bad lip reading before that was a thing, kind of. And there's one part where caricatures of Siskel and Ebert are reviewing the movie in the movie.
What? It's getting a little too meta there.
And apparently the Ebert caricature enjoyed the movie more than the Siskel one. And I think there's like blackface in it too. I wasn't sure, but
was that in the original movie or did they add that when they redubbed it?
Okay, some of it was stuff that they filmed like for that movie. Like some of it was footage from that older movie, and then some of it was stuff they filmed. Like the stuff with Nixon was obviously filmed for the.
Yeah.
And it's terrible, but it is fucking weird. It's kind of interesting as just this weird experiment somebody did, but the jokes are so bad. They're like so childish and just stupid, but it's such a bizarre, like, what the fuck is this type of thing?
I'm looking at a review for it on IMDb. They gave it 1 star out of 10, and it ends with, "I need therapy after watching this."
Oh, ouch.
He also calls it worse than Manos Hands of Fate.
I'm gonna be totally honest. Manos the Hands of Fate is hilarious. I think it's considered like one of the worst movies ever made. Personally, I think it's one of those like unintentionally like funny bad type movies like The Room.
Yeah.
Apparently, Marlon Brando. Yes, he has a connection to this movie.
No.
Do you know where this is going?
Man. I don't know what his involvement with this is at all, actually.
You don't know where this is going?
No, I don't, I'm afraid.
He was offered the role of Colonel Zayson. But think about this, he basically would have been playing a Russian version of Colonel Kurtz.
Yeah, that's exactly what that would have been.
Apparently, Rambo rides the same horse that Indiana Jones did in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Huh.
That is fucking awesome right there.
A famous horse.
Yep. Hollywood stunt horse right there.
All right. Do you have anything else?
Just one more thing to quote Columbo. I did not read the novelization of this, which again was written by David Morrell, who wrote the novel First Blood, where Rambo dies.
Gotta be a weird thing to experience.
I did read some reviews of it, and that gave me an idea of what the differences were. Rambo is depicted as very self-loathing, like in the second book, which is the reason he gets in a fight at the beginning. You know, the stick fight.
Yeah.
There was more development of the Afghani characters, and apparently Rambo is disliked by one of them before proving himself with the horse riding game. Trotman does basically nothing in it. Due to being tortured, he's immobilized and mute for the final act.
Wow.
The complete opposite of like the movie. He gets more to do in that, but yeah. And Rambo has to carry him on a stretcher. There's just all the action scenes, I guess. I guess he's just like trying to... I don't know, is he like firing a machine gun while he's carrying Trotman in the... Oh my gosh.
I guess. I don't know.
There's also a female Dutch doctor who's a supporting character that does not appear at all in the movie.
I was about to say I don't remember that character.
It also sounds like the action scenes in this weren't as big of scale as in the movie.
Huh.
There's a lot of survival stuff in the desert. That seemed to be the direction they were going here. There's like one specific one I heard about was there's like a sandstorm that attacks him at one point, which what is it? Like a sandworm show up like in Dune? But
it'd be interesting to get a movie adaptation of this novelization.
It's interesting how completely different it is. Zason's death is also very different. He gets killed by having a knife thrown into his head.
Yeah, that's pretty different.
That is a very Rambo way to kill someone, but it's not as Rambo of a way to kill someone as
ramming a tank into their helicopter.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my god. This movie, I can't decide which is a better death scene in this movie between that and the part where he blows up the guy like while he's getting hanged and like, oh my god. That's like the literal definition of overkill right there.
Yeah.
But again, it's pretty fantastic. Okay, so next, for the next podcast, we're doing Rambo. It's the fourth film, but it's just called Rambo.
All right, play the Andy Griffith.
Good night, you stupid idiot. Good night, you miserable slob.